Hey guys, what's up? Ludicrousness here. We've got our third match for the 2019 Twilight Struggle League for Reddit. So as you can see, this time I'm going to be up against BJRocket, who is clearly a much better player than me. Definitely, we will see how it goes. We've got a 60-minute match, +2, random. And it looks like I'll be playing as the USSR. So, should be interesting. Let's see what it brings. Okay. Okay, so looking at my opening hand, I've definitely got some good stuff. This is pretty cool. Okay, so like you can see, socialist governments is probably going to be my headline. I've got a couple big 4-op cards. I want to use NATO as soon as possible, in case of Marshall Plan or Warsaw Pact. Containment's going to be at the end. I've got CIA created. That's actually good in this case because I'm also sitting on Fidel, which means that I can get rid of CIA created, very quickly. And he can't force me to have mid-war influence by that point. Containment's going to be my last AR. Nasser is also really good. I'm probably going to open with a coup on Italy, assuming that socialist governments goes through and it doesn't get defected. Nasser is going to be pretty critical to play as soon as possible once DEFCON starts to drop a little bit. I feel like Western Asia is going to be challenging, but we'll go from there. Okay, so we got Captured Nazi Scientist. That's a pretty good one. Immediately gives him 2 points ahead on the space race. But on the plus side, I can immediately go for my coup of Italy, and I definitely will. So I get NATO out of there without triggering it. So we've got a 5 in 6 chance of succeeding on this coup. I failed, so I rolled a 1. That's not really great. But it does mean that he's probably going to be spending this AR just kind of repairing some of the damage. And it also means that Italy is relatively unprotected for kind of like future turns. So, okay. Let's figure out what we're going to do next here. I've got one more really strong op card, which I don't really want to play immediately. So I guess he's going for Afghanistan, which definitely makes sense. I think in this case, it's not a bad idea to go into Afghanistan after him, although that does give him a pretty easy coup target. Israel gives me immediate access to Egypt, but, I've already got access to Egypt, so that's not really like a huge deal or anything. It's probably more important to get one to South Korea immediately, and maybe a second one into South Korea. I definitely don't mind that. I'm probably going to have to give him US-Japan Defense Pact here. So having a little bit more of a lead in Asia sounds like not a bad idea. On the other hand, it's nice to have access to Pakistan in case I do want to play into there, which I probably do. So I think I'll probably just go for 2 ops like that. Okay. Now, one nice thing is that DEFCON's at 4. So if I can keep DEFCON pretty high, it could potentially cause some problems for him. So he goes for Asia scoring. That's 1 point for me. That definitely makes sense. I think the next thing that I'm going to do, I'd like to trigger CIA created if possible. But there's kind of like other things that I want to do first. And CIA created isn't really going anywhere, considering that I got Fidel. So I think in this case, playing Fidel 2 into Iraq actually makes a lot of sense. So let's give that a shot. Let's just think this through for a second. He definitely doesn't want to play up into Malaysia to give me any kind of access. If I play down into Israel, he's immediately going to cram Egypt. I wonder if it's almost better to play Nasser. I do get the counter coup, assuming that he coups up. But I'd prefer to kind of keep DEFCON higher if possible, so I think I don't mind just taking Iraq like that. That way he can't knock me out of Iraq on a successful coup. And we'll go from there. So 4, 5, 6, I get 3 more turns. I wouldn't mind necessarily holding Nasser, potentially for headline next turn. Containment probably wants to be my last AR. I get Warsaw Pact, which isn't terrible. So he's going for Asia, which is pretty interesting considering that he just scored Asia. So I will definitely add some influence here. And let's just continue to work on Austria a little bit. So he goes for Pakistan. That definitely makes some sense. So my options here, I could coup Pakistan, but it's not like I had really good luck on that last time. And the only thing that I really have to coup with is the US-Japan Mutual Defense Pact, which all things considered I would probably rather not coup with. I want to save containment for now. I don't necessarily want him to know that I have Nasser, but I think in this case I am probably just going to go ahead and trigger it. Asia's already been scored. Asia's worth a lot, but potentially being able to cut him off from the Middle East, I do get the counter coup, and I'm going to have containment for kind of like some high ops later in the turn. So I think let's go for it and see what happens. So assuming that he coups Egypt here, I'm probably going to go for CIA created probably makes sense, although it does tell him that I have containment, and it does potentially give him a second coup. So he is going for it with the Cambridge 5. So he got a 4, which was probably the best result that he could hope for from it. And he doesn't have any other scoring cards. Okay, so that's going to be a little challenging. What's my next option? I think in this case I am going to play CIA created. Let's get it out of there. Give him a move, and then we'll go from there. So, if he drops DEFCON just by taking a nothing coup on Iraq, then I guess that I'll probably play into Israel, since that forces him to go into Egypt immediately. And it allows me to coup it on my last AR with containment. If he doesn't drop DEFCON, then perfect, yeah. So that's sort of what I was hoping he was going to do. So by playing into Israel here, it means that he now has a choice. If he plays into Egypt himself, then I can coup it out with containment, and I would say I have a decent chance at it. If he ignores it, then I can just take Egypt myself with containment. I feel like access to Egypt and Libya is pretty, it's pretty critical. So he is going for influence here. Okay, so he's taking a domination. I think I will go ahead and take that last coup. Hopefully it goes a little bit better than the last one did. A 5 or a 6 would be really sweet here. I got another 1, so that's not really like the best. So let's see what happens. He does get containment out of this, so that's going to let him kind of get like a bit of an immediate advantage. The good news is that I've been able to hold on to US-Japan Mutual Defense Pact, so that's a really nice strong card for next turn. So really what we're going to be looking out for are decall and destall, obviously. Those are going to be really great for access cards. Now, I will mention that Italy is still at 2. That means that there's definitely going to be a possibility to try to break in there, a little bit later in the game, if he doesn't kind of like overprotect that up to 4. So I don't necessarily hate that. That's also Truman Doctrine, which is gone, which is pretty great. And I see that he decided to go for 2. So we're really going to be looking out for Vietnam revolts, or possibly for decolonization. Okay, so I get de-Stalinization, which is kind of halfway almost as good, from a certain point of view. I also got Korean War, which is pretty great. Middle East scoring. I'm probably just going to try to get out of that with a draw. Comecon is okay. Now, I haven't seen defectors. I could use 5-year plan on Middle East scoring, and I don't actually hate that plan. So we need to assume that he's, it's probably a 50-50 that he has defectors here. So I would probably go for the Korean War, I think, as a good opportunity to try to, it's 50-50 and it's before US-Japan comes out. So it's a good opportunity to try to make up some ground in Asia. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. So we got special relationship. He's probably going to go into France with that. It's not super strong, considering that NATO isn't in play. And, fingers crossed here, let's see if we get some luck with the Korean War. So we failed on that one, which kind of sucks. So I think what we'll do here is probably... I don't necessarily hate the idea of trying to race him a little bit in Europe. After all, I did just see that Truman Doctrine kind of went away. So if I do kind of crush Italy like this, he wants to protect both Italy and also France. He needs to put 2 into Italy and at least 1 into France. But I've got pretty decent ops this turn, and I feel like it's actually possible that I could make this happen. I definitely want to hold on to D-stall until a little bit closer to sort of like the end of the turn. Truman Doctrine is gone, which is pretty great. On the other hand, I might just want to grab South Korea, since this is probably the only opportunity that I'm really going to get to take it. He doesn't really have like a very good coup target here. He's really only got Iraq, and he wants to coup in order to drop DEFCON. So if he doesn't coup, then I'm able to kind of take Egypt pretty easily. So I guess my current plan here is still that I'm going to be using 5-year plan on the Middle East scoring, which is pretty hilarious as the USSR. So I think let's go ahead and go for that. Having both North and South Korea is very strong. He's probably going to take domination in France here, but there's a lot of events that kind of make France frustrating for the US. De Gaulle and Suez means that he probably needs to play an extra 4 influence in there at a minimum over the course of kind of like this early war. So if he wants to go for it immediately, it's not a terrible move, but on the plus side it does give me another shot at Egypt. And I think I would probably take that shot. So let's talk space. He already kind of got ahead there. He's playing an event, so he's not going to be able to hold a card this turn. He's playing Suez Crisis. So the nice thing there, sure, overprotecting, that makes a lot of sense. He's not going to be able to hold a card here, which is pretty interesting. I think I will probably go for Independent Reds is kind of like a nothing card. Egypt might be lost to me for now. There is always going to be an opportunity to kind of get in there later on, but at this point I think that I need to start making some inroads into the mid-war regions. So if I'm looking at my cards, I think I like Independent Reds for this one. So you can see I got a little bit more success there with the coup compared to my first 2, which is kind of nice. So that gave me some access to Central America, which is something that I desperately needed. And I've also got Destalinization that I'm probably going to play later this turn. So he did have Europe scoring, which is a little bit frustrating, I'm not going to lie. But on the plus side, this lets me take Finland, 2 out of Austria, and then probably 1 out of East Germany, I think makes a lot of sense. And we're going to go 1 into Angola, kind of get the lead on that. I think I'd like to get into Laos, Cambodia immediately. That makes a lot of sense to me. Actually, yeah, before he spreads up with Thailand. The next one is going to be 1 into Chile. What were my first 2 plays? Angola, definitely. Laos, Cambodia, and Venezuela. I think that makes a lot of sense here. Sure, let's go for that. So this gives him a lot of things that he wants to do right away. He needs to immediately overprotect Thailand, definitely. Otherwise, I'll probably take it with the China card, although that will make 5-year plan a little bit riskier here, and make it so that it's possible that I won't want to hold on to Middle East scoring like that. So he played Blockade for influence to overprotect Thailand. So this is actually really interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that move as him. because this gives us back-to-back action rounds at the end of the turn. He gets 4-5, and then I get back-to-back. So let's think this through for a second. What can I do with back-to-back action rounds? My initial impression is that I can actually do a lot. I can definitely do a lot with this. Okay, we're going to give him Formosan for now. And I think we're going to threaten India. It's pretty interesting. Because, like you can see here, I get back-to-back action rounds, which means I can put 2 into Italy with US-Japan Defense Pact, and then pump it with 5-year plan. And there's not really anything that he can do about it. So I think I kind of like that. I like threatening India, and you know, if he just decides to take this opportunity to overprotect Italy even further, then I definitely don't mind the idea of taking India outright, although I would probably want to take Burma first if at all possible. But back-to-back action rounds is very strong. So what I'm really hoping to see next turn is going to be Red Scare Purge. So he goes for influence with the Arab-Israeli War. So he does go for Italy a little bit further, which makes a lot of sense. Alright, so we failed on that one, unfortunately. Interesting. Okay. Well, we're probably going to use US-Japan here. I like Burma. And Middle East doesn't matter quite so much right now, since I know that I'm going to be able to toss it. So, it's possible that what I should be doing here is trying to make some ground up in the mid-war regions. He's probably going to end up with a clean domination in Asia if I trigger the US-Japan Mutual Defense Pact. The alternative is that I space the pact right now, which I don't really hate. Among other things, if I redraw it, it lets me take Japan with the China card, which is sort of an interesting move, but it can make it really frustrating for the US when they get a really dominating position kind of this early. And I still have 3 ops at the end of the turn, so I think let's go ahead and try that. I do get the point from it, which is pretty great. I'm just not really ready to give him the US-Japan Pact right now. I think it's just too strong of an event. So I don't get Italy quite yet, but we definitely have some opportunities here. So with 5-year plan, I think the most important thing is going to be starting to make up a little bit of ground here in the mid-war regions. Like you can see, I'm not in the best position at this point going into kind of like turn 3, mostly thanks to a couple botched coups. So the nice thing here is that, like I was saying, I can set up some problems for the start of the next turn because he can't respond to this. So if I'm looking at what my options are, I would say that Europe probably looks overall the worst. So I am able to kind of break his domination like that, but I can't really follow that up, and it's not super helpful in Western Europe because he can always knock me out with the Truman Doctrine. Pakistan, I think, makes a little bit more sense since it gives me kind of like an instant domination here. And then I can potentially follow up with 1 in Burma. Not sure that's necessarily the best. I could put just 2 into Pakistan kind of like this. But I think in this case, I like breaking that and probably continuing to march up a little bit into Zaire here. That's probably the best overall move. If I get Asia scoring in the headline, that gives me a pretty good opportunity to be able to kind of take that domination immediately. Okay, so like I said, it's not really the best shape going here into turn 3, but we're going to have to see what happens, unfortunately. The good news is some nasty stuff has been taken out. So he got defectors in this case, which is pretty interesting. Among other things, I know that he has defectors, and he knows that I know that he has defectors. So it really becomes a case of will he, won't he? And, you know, it's a little hard to say. Now, the plus side is I definitely got a really good hand here. I'm really enjoying some of the stuff that I have here. So, let's see what my options are. I can't really drop DEFCON in the headline, but he also knows that I got the Indo-Pakistani War, which means that this is a pretty good opportunity to try to take India. Now, I know that he has defectors. I think I'm just going to take a relatively minor event for me. There's nothing that I really want to bait out with defectors. Definitely want to save Red Scare Purge. I think Blockade already went. So, I think that we will probably go for that. We're going to try Romanian abdication here. And we'll go from there. If he defects it, it's not really a huge deal. Otherwise, yeah. So, definitely expected that. That's why we didn't really go for something. It's actually kind of nice considering that it was the lowest op value card in my hand. And also, I knew that he was going to have to, deal with a couple things there with Independent Reds and also Truman Doctrine kind of still out there. So, the next thing that we're going to do is probably take our coup. I don't think there's really any getting around that. He didn't drop DEFCON in the headline, so in this case, we'll probably use Red Scare Purge for it. We're going to take another crack at Egypt. It's just too valuable right now. He's got domination in the Middle East, and Libya hasn't been claimed yet, so being able to be first to Libya is pretty great. It's a very stable battleground. So we got a little bit more success there, which is pretty great. So that's going to make the Middle East a lot tougher for him. If he redrew Middle East scoring, he's probably going to want to lock that up almost immediately. And the other good news is here, he knows that I have the Indo-Pakistani War, so it really gives him a little bit of a dilemma. So I think the next moves that I'm probably going to make, he also got Vietnam revolts, which he's going to save for the end of the turn. By the end of the turn here, I want Panama, Venezuela, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, maybe South Africa, if I want to press my advantage, Libya, and maybe Saudi Arabia. So that's like a lot of stuff that I want to play into. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10 ops investment. And the good news is, I have 10 ops investment. So, since I don't really have anything to ditch Marshall Plan, and I'd really like to kind of play it, if at all possible, unfortunately I'm probably going to be giving it to him. I don't want to say Europe is necessarily given up as lost. Oh, that's a good one. What's he gonna go for here? Okay, so he's breaking some stuff over there. I think that makes perfect sense. We're definitely going to go ahead and stop his domination in Asia. We're going to take Libya, like I was talking about, and probably also domination in the Middle East. I think that that's a pretty strong play as to threaten a domination like that. It gives him NATO, but that's only a problem if he redrew Special Relationship. On the other hand here, if he did redraw Special Relationship, I don't necessarily want to give that to him. So maybe it does actually make more sense in this case to make all the same moves but with Marshall Plan instead. Again, like I said, unfortunately I'm kind of giving Europe up for lost at this point. It's going to score again and it's going to score pretty well for him, but there's not really a lot that I can do about that. So later this turn I'm definitely going to take my shot with the Indo-Pakistani War on India, especially if he continues to kind of threaten domination in Asia. I don't really want that to be a possibility. And we'll keep him busy here kind of with like the threat of the domination in the Middle East. So the other moves that I want to make this turn, that's all stuff that I had kind of accounted for previously. I knew I was going to take Libya, and taking domination in Syria is always a good choice. What was the other move that I made with that? Right, Burma. Burma wasn't really kind of planned for, but I think it's still probably a pretty good choice. Especially knowing that, I have the Indo-Pakistani War, and I'm going to be fighting from a losing position in Asia for most of this game, almost certainly. So, he spreads some stuff out there, and then he goes for duck and cover. Let's see what he decides to do. So he goes a little bit into Africa like that. I think that's kind of to be expected. So in this case, taking Saudi probably makes a lot of sense, and he also made some inroads into Africa. I don't mind that necessarily, since it gives me a really good coup target for the next turn. So 4, 5, 6, I get a couple more turns here. Taking Saudi makes plenty of sense. Interestingly enough, I'm actually reasonably close to being able to threaten total control in the Middle East. So there's a bunch of things that kind of have to go my way for that, but it's definitely possible. So I think we are probably going to go ahead and take that, continue to press him in the Middle East. I think he's definitely a little bit worried about that. If he's not sitting on it himself, at least the possibility that I might have it here. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. He does socialist governments into space. He gets the 2 space points, so that's a little unfortunate. Okay, so the next moves that I'm going to make here, I think are probably going to be locking all this up in Central and South America, like I was talking about. We get 2 more turns here. So if he does press for domination in Asia, I'm probably going to use the Indo-Pakistani War on India. And if he doesn't, then I'm probably going to continue to just spread a little bit in South America. I definitely want Venezuela protected by 3. And let's see, I probably want also... Oh, interesting. So he definitely is not sitting on a scoring card here. That's really good news because it means that I don't really need to worry too much about a lot of this stuff going into the last couple turns here. So he did play into Canada, which signals very strongly he's going to be playing NORAD for the event. So that means that there's a lot of stuff that he can do here. NORAD is pretty swingy, but let's just think this through. I definitely want Brazil. I want one more in Venezuela. I want Angola. And since he's going to be playing NORAD for the event, I almost want to overprotect a couple of these things like South Korea, I think would make sense. But, on the other hand, maybe I just go for the Indo-Pakistani War right now. I think I don't mind that. It's a 5 out of 6 chance that I take it. On the other hand, it's also not really going anywhere. Defectors is gone, which makes Indo-Pakistani a safe play at the start of next turn, and it's probably more important right now to stick with my original plan and consolidate my forces a little bit. I do strongly anticipate he's going to be playing NORAD for the event here, which means that I do probably want to overprotect some stuff, but right now I think that I will probably just stick with the original plan of buffing a bunch of stuff up in South America. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. Great. So, for my last action, assuming that he plays NORAD here as one of his final 2 moves, I need to consider what I want to overprotect. So he plays Special Relationship. That is unfortunate that he kind of redrew that, but, it is what it is. So in this case, let's see. I think I probably like the idea. We want to overprotect Israel because we're anticipating that. And then I think that we are also going to play 1 down into Angola just to stop him from being able to spread up a little bit there. I think that's a pretty strong play, all things considered. And the reason for South Korea is because I strongly anticipate that he is going to be kind of triggering the NORAD event here. So let's see what he saved for the end of the turn. Definitely it's great being first into South America, being able to lock a lot of that up like that. He does have a good point margin, I would say, going into the mid-war, but on the plus side I've gotten a lot of other good events here. So he does play Vietnam, and let's see where he puts those 2 influence. So that makes sense that he reestablishes a domination in Asia. That makes a lot of sense. And if I draw Asia scoring, I'm definitely going to be tempted to headline the Indo-Pakistani War. So we got Europe scoring, but thankfully we also got 5-year plan for it, which is great. I see OAS founded, which is going to be a problem. I see Brezhnev doctrine, which is pretty great. Now he headlined extremely quickly. That tells me that it's probably either one of grain sales or Asia scoring. If it is Asia scoring, the only chance that I have to flip it here is going to be with the Indo-Pakistani War. I think in this case Brezhnev doctrine makes a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure all of my cards here are affected by it, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bonus ops I get out of Brezhnev, which honestly makes a lot of sense. So he goes for Junta. That's a really good one. he's going to be able to steal the coup and potentially make some ground up here in South America. So that's really important for him. But I think that it's pretty good having a... okay, so he rolled a 3 on that. It's not the strongest. And the good news is that I can play this one basically entirely safely at this point, and we're probably going to continue to press up into Chile. So he gets absolutely nothing out of Alliance for Progress. I really like that. I've got Fidel for Central America, and we're just going to have to see how everything else goes. He probably would have headlined Asia scoring if he was sitting on it, but I also want to stop that from happening. So one thing that I really like here is playing the China card, all 4 points into Pakistan since it's not overprotected. And because I have the Indo-Pakistani War, that makes it more likely to succeed on India. So he's going for UN intervention with Quagmire. So that's a really good one, definitely. I believe he is still sitting on NORAD as well. So he went down into Africa there. That's a pretty good move. There's not a lot that I can do about that right now, but what I do really like here is being able to flip that domination in Asia. Sitting on the Indo-Pakistani War, there's not a lot that he can do about it right now. It gives me a great chance at being able to take India. And I also really like the idea here of using my remaining ops to do all sorts of stuff. Take control in Chile and overprotect Pakistan and North Korea for sure. We're going to be getting our mill-ops by the end of the turn by taking a coup on the Saharan states. I'd like to get NORAD out of, or excuse me, Truman Doctrine out of play as soon as possible. We probably also want to set up a realignment threat on South Africa, since I was able to get into Angola and Zaire there. Botswana is kind of like a famously challenging coup target, since it's one of the only important stability to battlegrounds. Oh, interesting. So he is locking a bunch of stuff up there, so he's definitely a little bit concerned about the possibility of my domination. So I think in this case I will probably play that event and go for that war on India. So I succeeded on that, which is really awesome. That's going to be extremely challenging for him. So let's see what our next move here is going to be. Remember that I definitely do want to overprotect Pakistan and North Korea because he now has the China card. India doesn't matter as much. So the good news for me is that he was not able to get NORAD into play, but he was able to take Taiwan, which is definitely a very strong move for him. But, there's a lot of things that can flip stuff down there, so it's definitely not over yet. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is probably a little bit like I was talking about, that overprotection, and we're going to go ahead and grab control of Chile as well. That's going to make him having the China card not as powerful as it would otherwise be. Now, one challenge that I see here, unfortunately, okay, so he did have Africa scoring, which kind of sucks. One challenge that I do see is because I played the China card, I'm only going to get 3 more turns, which means that I need to play 5-year plan on my next turn, and it's really a 50-50, I think, at that point. No, it would be even worse than that, unfortunately. It would be a 33% chance that it pulls out Europe scoring. That was definitely a little bit of a misplay. I think in this case, making up the ground in Asia was probably worth it, but definitely it's a little bit hard to say. Yeah, that was pretty unfortunate. All of you probably saw it ages ago, but it is what it is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and trigger Truman Doctrine. He's going to pull me out of Austria, and then I think we're probably going to, let's see, Africa has been scored, so I think in this case I really like the idea of, what is the best move here? Middle East is pretty solidly mine at this point, but I guess I could press forward on Israel. That definitely threatens the possibility eventually of actually taking control of it, which is pretty great. It is too bad that I played the China card like that. Yeah, it's only a 33% chance that I'm going to be able to ditch Europe scoring. Although in fairness, it was also a 33% chance on India. So, it's hard to say. But let's see what happens here. So he goes for the event on Camp David Accords. That's a pretty strong one. So I guess this is where I take my shot. I could wait till my last AR, but then it's a 50-50 that I actually lose the game, which I definitely can't abide. So the worst case scenario here is that it pulls out Fidel, in which case I lose Cuba for now. The best case scenario is that it pulls out Europe scoring. The last alternative is that it pulls out OAS, in which case I actually have 3 ops to respond to it. So let's see what happens. It pulled out Fidel, so that was definitely kind of like the worst case scenario that I could have imagined, but it is what it is for now. So we're going to go ahead and play 3 into Central America, or the alternative is that I build up my competitive advantage in the Middle East by taking Israel as well. After Camp David Accords, it's probably going to be one of the more frustrating ones for me. And I think for my last move, we will probably start to threaten him a little bit here in Asia by playing Japan. So let's see what happens there. Obviously, US-Japan Defense Pact is still to come out, but this means that, assuming that I do get the US-Japan Defense Pact in the future, I would be able to take Japan with a 4-op card. So let's go ahead and try that. So the bad news here, unfortunately, is that's 5 points down from Europe, so there's not really a lot to say about that. Unfortunately, everything that I kind of tried for it failed a little bit, so we're probably just going to have to eat it. We do get Willy Brandt, so that makes up 1 point. And unless I'm totally mistaken, I'm going to be getting the 2 points from Milop since he doesn't really have a target. So that definitely helps to ease the sting of Europe a little bit here. So let's go ahead and see what he does with that. That's, 10 points, I believe, which we're going to be down as the USSR kind of at this stage of the game. So that's definitely not really ideal. And he spaces de Gaulle, so he's definitely racing all the way up there. He is at the point where he can peek at my headline, but, you know, he also can't discard 2-op cards now, so I don't necessarily hate that. Let's see what we've got here. I believe that we have seen, defectors at this point. It came out on turn 3. So, what are my options? Brush War is very strong on Iran, for obvious reasons here. But it could potentially be even stronger if I wait until after we get Sadat coming out. Che gives me Saharan states, which is pretty nice. Decolonization is obviously excellent. I also really like liberation theology. I think in this case, because I tossed Fidel and because I'm sitting on Central America, I probably want to play liberation theology almost immediately here. Brush War is going to be great as kind of like a get-out-of-jail-free card for a bunch of stuff here. Although decolonization also makes it very possible that I'm going to be able to take domination in Asia. So I think we will probably go for liberation theology for now and see if we can hold on to decolonization for a little bit longer. On the other hand, if he is sitting on Asia scoring or Southeast Asia scoring, that makes it a totally safe play for him. So maybe we will go for decolonization here. I think that's always a pretty safe choice for headline, and we're going to go from there. So this is a very strong hand, which is great. Really the only bad card that I've got in it is OAS Founded. Assuming that everything goes well in South America, hopefully I should be able to score it for 10 points. I think that's kind of the dream scenario here. And if Central America scores really big for me as well, then this game's definitely not over. But I am going to have my work cut out for me. Asia looks a lot better than what it started at the beginning of this game. Like I said, Egypt after Sadat comes out is basically going to be the best possible option for Brush War because that kind of, it's totally isolated, so that's a 2/3 chance that I will succeed on it. Now, if he missile envies me here, he gets the US-Japan Defense Pact. Him being able to see my headline is definitely, it's challenging, but him not being able to space 2-op cards either is not really the best for him either. So he's making up his mind. Let's see, as far as time goes, I'm a little bit behind. I've got 33 minutes left on the clock, and we're at the start of turn 5. So assuming that we go all the way, I am going to have to speed it up a little bit here. But I feel like, some of my more challenging decisions were earlier on, and I'm in a little bit of a better position now. So, if he has grain sales, that would be really strong here. My hope would be, in that case, he pulls South America scoring. His other options that might be really good, puppet governments could potentially be pretty strong. Now the nice thing is here, as long as I can take Indonesia, I think, I do end up with domination in Asia. So that's pretty great. He could also potentially be sitting on, Southeast Asia scoring. So let's see what he goes for. He goes for ABM treaty. Okay, so that's a pretty good one. So let's see what he does with that. He's cooing Argentina. He didn't really roll very well on it. So the good news is here, I can kind of spread all around in Asia. That's pretty strong, I think. The only other alternative that I would have would potentially be Nigeria here. But in this case, you know, Africa is much easier to flip. And I do kind of like the idea of being able to establish that domination unless he kind of like immediately goes for some of that stuff. So we will definitely use East European unrest, I think, for a coup on Argentina. Now, let's see, this has a 50-50 of giving it to me outright. That's okay. What's the danger of giving him US-Japan here? If I give him US-Japan, that brings him up to 3 battlegrounds to my 4 battlegrounds. It doesn't really change the math, though, that I'm going to have to take everything, regardless, or take 1 non-battleground regardless to be able to kind of establish that domination. So I did force him to play 2 ops into there, so US-Japan is worth less than it otherwise would be. And it also makes Argentina a lot more of a sure thing. It's a 5 out of 6 chance that I'm going to be able to take it. Okay, so that's not terrible. The good news is that it means that he can't play back into it, which is pretty great. So what are some other kind of bad cards that he might be sitting on here? He immediately needs to take, probably Indonesia. Otherwise, I will happily snap Indonesia up for that possibility of Asian domination, which, I do technically have right now. He does have Afghanistan for 1 point for adjacency, but that's not too bad. So, like I was saying, I'd really like to hold brush war if at all possible until I do get the possibility of, a Sadat opportunity for it. But we'll have to kind of see what happens here. So he is immediately going for locking everything up there that I had already done. That makes a lot of sense. And I think what we're going to do in this case, brush war could actually be potentially valuable. Let's think this through. If I use liberation theology right now, we get 2 into Mexico and 1 into Cuba. He probably wants to immediately take Mexico, which actually makes that a really good target for brush war. And then I can lock up Cuba and Argentina with Che. So I think we'll probably go for that for now and see what happens. So really the only problematic card that I'm sitting on right now is OAS Founded. I wasn't able to get rid of that last turn while I was under Brezhnev. That would have been really nice. Okay, so he is going for all of that in Mexico right now. That's exactly what I would have expected. Thankfully he didn't go for Guatemala, which would have been very strong. So I will take this opportunity to try for the brush war on Mexico. It's a 50-50, and we got it, which is great. So that means that Central America is going to swing pretty strongly towards me here, since there's not a lot that he can do at this point to really screw with it. So, like I was saying, Che gives me both Cuba and also Argentina. He's immediately going for a realignment, which makes a lot of sense. He's going for Mexico, though, which I think Cuba probably makes more sense since, since he only needs to get kind of like a single success on it. Okay, so he goes for the U2 incident. That makes a lot of sense. We're going to play probably Che like this, I think. Makes the most sense. That makes realignments tricky, and even if he does get successful with either a coup on Guatemala or a realignment on either Mexico or Cuba, it means that I can immediately score Central America for at least a domination. I need one more point, to be able to take control in South America. Right now it's worth 5, so I have 4, 5, 6, 7. That is, well, that's the entirety of my investment this turn. The alternative is that I immediately take control in both of them, and sort of see what happens depending. But being able to score one of them almost certainly for control, presence-less control in this case, could be extremely strong. So let's see what happens. He might go for some more Hail Mary realignments, but as we saw in our last game, if you were following me, realignments are always a little bit uncertain. So he could get lucky and clean me out of both entirely, or he could get totally unlucky. He got a little bit unlucky in this case. We're probably going to go a bit more for my kind of initial strategy here, I think, and probably go ahead and do something like that. I think makes a lot of sense. The downside is this locks me in on my next turns, South America and Central America. So if he does something to screw up South America, like Voice of America, there's not a lot I can do about it. But I think we're going to go for it regardless. I think we've got a good possibility here of being able to score both of these regions really strongly. If I get out of this turn still with the score in the blue, then I'm definitely going to be in trouble, I would say. But as it's looking right now, it's not terrible. And I think he's also possibly forgotten that Indonesia I can now flip with 3 to give me domination in Asia. And I'm definitely going to do that kind of like as soon as the opportunity presents itself. So he gets to strip a little bit more out of East Germany, a little bit more of Poland, which makes a lot of sense. And let's see what he goes for. He's got kitchen debates. He is going for a coup. That makes a lot of sense. So he coups Guatemala. He got it. But the good news is that gives me 9 points from Central America, which I really like the sound of. So my next move, assuming that my next move has to be South America. There's not really any ifs, ands, or buts about that. So we're just going to have to see how it goes and play it by ear. So he immediately goes for puppet governments, probably into Colombia, which makes a lot of sense to at least get some presence down there. But we are definitely going to score this for 8 points. So that was really a productive turn, I would say. It definitely cleaned up the score a lot. And I think that it really gave me a bit more of a fighting chance in this game. So let's see what happens. He gives me South African unrest. That's probably why he played into Botswana there. So Angola is in really good shape. I think I will probably just take Botswana, or at least put 2 into Botswana, to give myself a good possibility of having a nice strong, realignment against South Africa next turn. So he goes for influence, which makes a lot of sense. And he's just kind of cleaning a little bit of that up. Nobody gets Milops. Arms race is definitely going to be coming out soon, and that's something that I want to kind of pay attention to. So we get Southeast Asia scoring, which is pretty great. We also get Sadat, which is maybe not quite so great. So Cultural Revolution, I think, makes, kind of like a ton of sense here. Southeast Asia scoring. He does get the, he gets to see my headline here. So this isn't really the strongest turn. After last turn, I can't really complain too much about it. Asia scoring is kind of neutral right now, and I'm not sure that I really have the ops to be able to make a big move. But I do actually like Cultural Revolution in this case as my headline, to be able to take back Thailand, potentially. So him seeing this, he's probably going to play Ussuri River Skirmish, if he has it, as his headline, because that's going to make it quite challenging for me. So let's go ahead and give that a shot and see what happens. These 2 scoring cards aren't really the worst in the world for me right now. I don't mind them too much. All 3 big mid-war bombs are gone at this point. That's Junta, ABM Treaty, and Brush War. I would say all 3 of them made an impact. ABM Treaty was probably a little bit less effective than he would have liked. Panama Canal Returned is kind of safe to play right now, since it means that all I need to do is just buff Panama up. But I feel like this turn is going to be a lot of just trying to get rid of sort of like some problematic cards here. So he might also be sitting on grain sales, in which grain sales would be probably the best possible, headline for him. But, there's not really a lot of really great cards for him to even draw with grain sales. So he goes for colonials. I think that makes a lot of sense. That lets him buff up a lot of stuff like Thailand. So that was pretty smart. It means that I'm not really easily going to be able to take that Asian domination. So he does go for Thailand, and also cleaning out a bunch of other stuff there. So in this case, I think I'm probably going to go for a coup. And the coup that I'm going to take is going to be That is definitely worth a lot at this point. So, what's the alternative here? I don't think there's any possibility that he's going to be able to really make a big difference in the Asia scoring. Southeast Asia scoring is sort of another story, but I might just have to go for it, unfortunately. So, he does get Zaire here, which kind of sucks. Unless I coup Zaire. I'm not necessarily sure if I want to do that or not. It's not a bad move, but Nigeria looks a little bit better, although he can set up a pretty easy realignment against it there. I think in this case I probably will go for it. We're going to go ahead and use How I Learned to Stop Worrying to take a coup on Zaire. That'll let him get some ground kind of in Southeast Asia there, but unfortunately it kind of is what it is. And it protects Angola still against those possible realignments from Botswana and South Africa. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. We got a 2 on it, which is pretty decent. It means that Zaire is still overprotected, which is pretty nice. It gave me my Milops for the turn, and then we're just going to have to go from there. Southeast Asia scoring definitely doesn't look too good, but right now it's only 4, and assuming that I can kind of get one of those back, it's not terrible. So he is still sitting at... Oh, he goes just for 1 influence, probably to take Laos, Cambodia? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I guess. So I'll probably take this opportunity to take Burma as well. That's probably a pretty good result. And there's not much else that I can do with Allende at this point. It is possible that he's sitting on one of OPEC or Middle East scoring, so I want to make those as problematic for him as possible. So I'm probably going to place Sadat quite close to the end of the turn. So, Asia scoring I definitely want to play as soon as possible here. There's not really anything that we can do about that. He goes for nuclear subs, so he's probably trying to lock up some stuff in Asia here. This is definitely kind of a good turn for him for that. But on the plus side, is there any way that I can take domination in Asia right now? Right now the country count is 6 to 9, so that's definitely going to be quite challenging with the ops that I'm sitting on. So I think what I'm going to do instead is take this opportunity. What is the right choice here? He's probably going to be coupping Zaire here. So I definitely need to be able to respond to some of this stuff, and I can't really respond right now. So I really don't want to play the China card at this point. It's only a Surrey River skirmish that can give it back to him at this point. Southeast Asia, there's not a lot that I can do about that. I just don't really have the ops. Asia scoring, I think it's not really going to change. It's going to be a wash. He's definitely going to go for a coup at this point. But again, there's just nothing that I can really do about it at this stage. So let's not make some of this stuff easier for him. He might want to coup Panama or Venezuela and make some of my choices easier. So let's go ahead and just play Asia scoring and get it out of the way. Alright, so he's got nuclear subs, which means he's going to be able to make a really big difference in Africa. So he goes for 1 small step. That's definitely a really good one. Okay, he got really good success from that, which is, it's a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. So I think in this case we're probably going to play Southeast Asia scoring and give it to him. And he's probably going to go for Zaire next. Again, unfortunately, with the cards that I have, there's just not a lot that I can do to kind of fight against that. He goes for Arman and Tehran, probably against Zaire. And he locks that one up as well, really well. Okay, so the next thing that we're probably going to do here is Panama Canal returned. Unfortunately, it's just damage control for the most part. We're going to take Panama back. This was definitely a really good turn for him to kind of have nuclear subs like that. Just since, like I was saying, I just don't really have a lot of ops that I can use to sort of fight back against some of this stuff. But, Africa's pretty swingy and there's a lot of things that can change it in the future. He goes for Voice of America, so that's probably going to clean me out of some stuff here. I think that makes a lot of sense. In this case, that's just too much territory to give up, so I'm probably going to go ahead and grab all that back. And then my last move that I'm going to make here is probably going to be Nixon plays the China card, which, giving him 2 points is probably better than the alternative of him being able to take it back in the future. And it makes it a little bit more likely that I'm going to be able to grab the China card. So, let's stick with that for now. He goes for a coup with Missile Envy against Venezuela. he failed on that one, which is kind of nice. So I'm probably going to give him Nixon plays the China card here, and take this opportunity. I'd like to protect Cuba a little bit more. And actually, what I wouldn't necessarily mind doing is, on the other hand, if I get Sadat out of the way, you know, that is what it is, and it's not really going to change, but it does give me the opportunity to potentially have a good coup against it in the future. So I think what I would probably go ahead for here is going to be to coup Colombia. And that gives me some good options. On the other hand, Guatemala is kind of like the big threat that I've got right now from realignments, so maybe I'll go for that instead. Alright, so I cleaned it out, which is probably the ideal result. It means that he can't really take a counter coup back. I can still space Nixon plays the China card next turn, and we got Sadat out of the way. OPEC, if I get it now, is worth 4 points, which is not bad. It's very likely that I'm going to be able to get Iran with the Iranian hostage crisis in the future, which I definitely like the sounds of that. And one thing that I do also want to pay attention... Oh, interesting. So he's going for SALT negotiations here. He's probably going to pull out ABM treaty. Oh, he pulled out Voice of America instead. So that's definitely a pretty strong one. Let's see what's going on here. He only gets kind of like one VP out of that, so it's not really as powerful as it otherwise could have been. But Voice of America is definitely very powerful. So everything's out here at this point. Let's see what we've got. Cuban Missile Crisis is pretty great. Let's see. These are definitely some good cards. I am a little bit worried about the possibility of Voice of America, but just looking at what he would probably do with it, he does have some good targets. I'll say that. Yes, he does. Latin American Death Squads isn't terrible here with DEFCON sitting at 5. I would like to get a coup into Asia with some stuff here, if at all possible. 5-year plan is pretty great. We're definitely going to be holding on to that for as long as we can. Muslim Revolution is also really good. I think I don't mind Cuban Missile Crisis here, although it does make Africa extremely challenging. Olympic Games is pretty safe to play at this point. It gives me two points. And I would say that I know he's sitting on Voice of America, but yeah, I think let's go for that. He is sitting on Voice of America, definitely. But yeah, I've got Cuban Missile Crisis, which is great. Okay. Oh, if he redrew How I Learned to Stop Worrying, we're over. Oh, interesting. Okay. So that's a pretty good one. I think between these I would rather give him We Will Bury You. So I probably get 2 points from Olympic Games. And let's see. He's probably going to coup something in the Americas. That's really the only thing that makes sense at this point. The nice thing is that I am sitting on Muslim Revolution, and I think it's pretty likely that I'm going to be able to take Egypt back here. The downside is that he does get a coup. That's nice. So the good news is that I probably get 2 points out of this. Nice, I do. Okay, I do need to use Missile Envy here, which is frustrating, but we're going to go for a coup on Nigeria, I think. So I got a 1, which isn't really the best, but, you know, it is what it is. We make do with what we got. He gets the final coup, and I'm probably not going to be able to use Arms Race for the event here, and with him sitting on Voice of America as well, that's also quite strong. So, let's just think what my options are. He plays Fidel. That's pretty safe. And he goes ahead and coups Panama. He did fail on that one, which is pretty nice. So, let's see what we got here. I've got 21 more minutes, so I definitely still have some time. Nixon plays the China card. Probably goes to space. It's past the reshuffle, and he's also sitting on a Surrey River skirmish at this point, so I don't really want to take that possibility. He's also got Voice of America, so what are the things that he could do with Voice of America here? Definitely Brazil is worrisome, and Africa definitely kind of sucks right now. So I think what we will probably do is play some stuff into Africa at this point, and also overprotect against that Voice of America, which I know is coming. I think that's probably pretty strong. So let's go ahead and try that. I think in this case we're going to use 5-year plan to finally, get rid of OAS founded. I wouldn't be surprised if he holds on to grain sales for the headline that he's expecting on his next turn. I would like to coup Colombia at some point here, to be able to set up a realignment against Venezuela. Okay. And let's see what our options are. Europe is definitely concerning. We haven't seen John Paul, but that's not to say that it won't come out again in the future. And, definitely my presence there isn't really the strongest at this point. So he's throwing away Lone Gunman, OPEC, and Middle East scoring. Those were definitely some really good results for him, which kind of sucks. But on the plus side, he might have redrawn some pretty bad scoring cards for him here. So let's go ahead and coup Colombia, I think. Awesome. That was decently strong. And that means that not only do I have domination in South America right now, but I also have a pretty good realignment threat against Venezuela. So I definitely like the sounds of that. Definitely I would be concerned as the US in that situation in South America. So he's sitting on both the Surrey River Skirmish and also, a Surrey River Skirmish and also the China card. So he is inventing Voice of America. I'm curious to see where he goes with this. He does Brazil and also Libya. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Excuse me. So I think in this case what I'm probably going to do is we're going to play 1 into Egypt, then we're also going to play 1 into Brazil here. So this sets up that realignment threat again, but what I really like about this is the opportunity that it brings with Muslim Revolution. So he's almost certainly going to try to do something to break up my realignment there, or take Libya, which, that's not really the strongest move, especially after he just ditched the Middle East scoring. So, I think Muslim Revolution is probably still worth it here, but it's less of a sure thing, I guess. But on the plus side, since he doesn't have any access through Tunisia, what I'm probably going to do is, kick him out of Egypt and Libya, and then it gives me basically both of them with not much possibility of him being able to flip it. Iranian hostage crisis will likely give me Iran, so I definitely don't mind that. He goes for Red Scare Purge here. Is he going to take Libya? He definitely does, and he also puts 1 into Tunisia, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think in this case, we're probably going to go ahead and space Nixon plays the China card. That was good. So I got success on that. The good news is that means that he's only going to be able to space once this turn. And, those 2-op cards are going to continue to be challenging for him, which I really like the sounds of that. So, Muslim Revolution, I could use it to take Libya and Egypt. I'm not really sure how I feel about that right now, since, like I said, now that he played into Tunisia, the value of it is a little bit more limited. Okay, so he didn't redraw a scoring card, which is fine. So I think what we're probably going to do in this case is see what kind of havoc we can wreak a little bit with Muslim Revolution. So I'd like to overprotect some of this stuff. And I'd also like to protect Cuba a little bit more. And I think we will also probably overprotect Brazil. And then lastly, it might make sense to overprotect Chile as well, since that's really the only kind of inroads that he can make here against the Americas. I think that that's, all things considered, a pretty strong play. So we also saw Red Scare Purge go for the last time. That's pretty interesting, since it means that we're not really going to be getting any, red scared hands, I guess, this game, which is pretty neat. So I think let's go ahead and try that. That gives me a pretty strong position in South America, locks that up at least, and we're just going to have to go from there and see what happens. So it's possible that, he did put a lot of effort. Oh no, he played Cambridge 5, so he's not sitting on a scoring card this turn. So we're probably going to use our, okay, so he does use a Surrey River Skirmish. That's kind of okay. So he plays it all into Asia. That makes perfect sense. I know he's not sitting on Asia scoring though, so it's not really a huge deal. We're going to go ahead and trigger OAS founded here, and then we're going to try to make a few things happen. So The news is almost everything in Central America and South America is sort of overprotected at this point. There's not a lot that he can really do about it. So we're going to try to make a few things happen. Definitely we're going to take back North Korea and South Korea both. So he puts everything into Brazil. So I think we will probably just go ahead, grab those back, and also grab Brazil. So that's pretty great. It also means that I can draw up to a full eight late war cards potentially. That's a really good opportunity to get Central America or South America. He goes ahead and bear traps me, so that's a pretty strong move. I think he redrew that in the reshuffle, so that's pretty strong. Let's see what happens here. I definitely got some really good stuff. I like Iranian hostage crisis, definitely. I like liberation theology. Now, so the stuff I'm going to be tossing to space here in order. We've got an evil empire. We've got shuttle diplomacy. After that, I don't really want to throw too much away. Let's see. Is Defectors still in play? Voice of America is thankfully gone, although Star Wars is definitely a possibility. Defectors is definitely, kind of possible here. But I don't really have too many things that I can do about that, if you think about it. I would like to play the Iranian hostage crisis, but I think what I'll go for instead here is probably liberation theology. I definitely want to play it to firm up Central America a little bit further, since that's one of my only kind of bastions that I've got at this point. And then what I'm definitely going to be doing is... I don't think I have a way to lower DEFCON in the headline here. And then what I'm going to be doing after that is probably, making some stuff happen with Bear Trap, and then I need to make up some ground in Africa. He does have a very strong position there with control that I'm probably going to find it difficult to break into, but I'll have to play it as it goes. If he did redraw Defectors, I can't really risk one of these other really good cards kind of going away to it. Although Portuguese Empire collapses could potentially be strong. Maybe I'll try that instead. I think I like that. I have 16 more minutes on the clock for 3 more turns. I usually play at about 5 minutes per turn, so that's not really a huge concern. So the nice thing with Portuguese Empire collapses here, he's going to be getting the opening coup, which does kind of suck. But the good news, at least to that, is that he's going to have to essentially coup Angola, or give it to me, since I can take it with 3 ops. And I do have some usable 3 ops here, which I like. Flower Power hasn't actually caused any kind of damage yet, so I think I'd like to keep that around if possible, so we'll probably toss an Evil Empire first. Middle East scoring won't be coming back until, final scoring, so I think that that's probably a pretty safe play, all things considered. So let's see what he goes for. Having the Reformer is definitely really nice. He might also go for grain sales here. The good news is that I've got a lot of kind of really good cards that would make grain sales frustrating for him, I guess, as kind of like an option. And there's also the possibility of him drawing UN intervention with grain sales, which is one of the most frustrating kind of results in the entire game. So let's see what happens. Okay, so he goes for Junta. That's definitely a really strong one. That's obviously because he wants to drop DEFCON in the headline, and he's going for Central America, which I think makes a lot of sense. He failed on his coup, which is really nice to see, and we also got to play all that down into Africa. We're going to go ahead. We failed on tossing an Evil Empire, which is really frustrating. That's going to give him kind of like 2 back-to-back action rounds. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that I can do about that. Hopefully I hit my next one with shuttle diplomacy, but we'll have to kind of see what happens. Good news is that I do have liberation theology to make a lot of this a little bit more frustrating for him. I also got de Gaulle leads France, which I actually don't really hate too much in this circumstance. He's going to take Angola back as well as Panama. That makes perfect sense. And let's see what he's got. Let's really hope we hit shuttle diplomacy. We failed a second time, so that's kind of too bad. So the next thing that we're going to be going for, I'm kind of out of really good opportunities to discard. Okay, and he did get Africa scoring, which is too bad. So we're going to go ahead and toss Ortega elected in Nicaragua. We finally got success on that one, which is kind of nice. So let's see what we do here. I think that Africa has already scored. He's sitting at +4. He gets ABM treaty, which is a really good one. Okay. And he gets a really good success on Brazil, so that's kind of too bad. Okay, so this has been kind of a disaster so far. What are the important things that need to happen here? I want Iranian hostage crisis. Definitely. 5, 6, 7, I get 3 more actions. The Reformer would be better if I had been able to headline it earlier. He's at 6 now. That's getting pretty dangerous for the score if he's sitting on War Games. We're going to play Pershing just to get that back down a little bit safer. And we'll see what happens. I believe Truman is still around as well, which is kind of too bad. But, you know, once again, it is what it is. Failing two bear trap rolls in a row is pretty frustrating. But sometimes that's just kind of how it goes. So he plays Yuri and Samantha. That says he's probably not going to be taking any more coups this turn. That's kind of okay. So I think in this case, I'd like to get some mill-ops. So I'm going to go ahead and coup the Saharan states probably. Or maybe Peru would potentially be kind of like the best possible result that I get out of this. Although if I do coup this one, it means that I can use 3 ops to take Nigeria in the future. So I got a 3, which is fine. Let's see what happens. He's got 2 more actions. I'd like to save either the Reformer or Liberation Theology potentially for a headline. He plays Quagmire to space. That makes a lot of sense. And luckily he fails on that one, which I really like to see. And we're going to go ahead and do 1 into Panama, 2 into Panama, excuse me, and then I think we'll also do 1 into Guatemala just to firm that up a bit. Although, that's maybe not the most important right now. Maybe we'll do 2 in there, and then 1 into Costa Rica as well, to set up possible realignment options here. So, we do still have the Reformer, which is a really strong card, and we're just going to have to kind of see what happens here. So, I'd like to see Central America scoring come out again, definitely. He's definitely locked up kind of like the north part of South America, which is quite frustrating. Having those back-to-back action rounds is a very strong thing to have happen. He uses Star Wars. That's a really good one. Does he pull out Voice of America again? He does. So let's see what he's going to be knocking out here. He takes Panama, and he also takes Iran. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay, fair enough. On the plus side, that's 1 less DEFCON suicide card that I really have to worry about. 1 small step is kind of nice here, but it's not really critical. Probably a bigger deal here is Soviets shoot down Cal and tear down this wall, both of which are quite challenging for me here. So let's just think this through for a second. I can space 1 of those cards. I can space Colonial Rearguards and then use 1 small step to hop ahead of him on the space race. I really like the sound of that. I think in this case, unfortunately, yeah, that's pretty frustrating. I might have to risk Central America scoring in the headline here. Or I play Soviets shoot down Cal and then score Central America. Is how I learned, or excuse me, is We Will Bury You. Yeah, it's in the discard. I don't think there's anything he can use to drop DEFCON with a 4-up card other than We Will Bury You. This gives him 2 points. That kind of sucks. Not gonna lie. Yeah, it's really just kind of frustrating. Yeah, I guess we use Soviets shoot down Cal and then score Central America action round 1 so that he can't play War Games for the win. I think Lone Gunman's also gone. Yeah. Okay, well, what are my other options here? Not really much. If he plays terrorism on me, I'm kind of screwed in this case. But, well, maybe it's not the worst. maybe let's risk it for now. I need to make something happen if I'm going to be able to win this. So playing defensively isn't going to accomplish anything. Let's play How I Learned to Stop Worrying. That's going to let me set DEFCON to 2 to be able to get play back into Iran immediately. He plays grain sales. Okay. He pulled out NORAD. That's definitely one of the worst ones that he could have pulled. Okay. Coups Argentina. He rolls a 5. Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah, I think we go for DEFCON 4. Hit Soviets. If he has war games, he's won this one. And we go for Panama. If he has war games, he wins. But I feel like he's going to win regardless if I don't establish this Central America control. So I got it. If he has war games, I don't see an immediate GG. So we do have an opportunity here. And I can space tear down this wall. Challenging. Okay. Let's think this through. I've got 11 more minutes, so I do need to hustle up a little bit since turn 10 is probably going to be quite challenging. We're going to score Central America immediately. For control, with any luck, gives me 10 points. Okay. Space tear down this wall, and then try to hop over him with one small step. I probably not sure I play one small step otherwise, since it removes my ability to space 2 op cards. Suez Crisis into Nigeria makes a lot of sense. He's playing Influence. Okay. He sets up a realignment down there, which makes a lot of sense. Not a ton that I can do about it right now because I need to score Central America for 10. Okay. Next thing that needs to happen. Middle East is fine. Asia. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'd like to break up his domination there. And the realignment threat against Chile. But I think I need to get rid of tear down this wall first. On the other hand, South America hasn't scored yet, so I think let's go for it. We got a 6, which is great. It means South America only scores 2 for him right now, and he can't realign Chile too easily. I think that last AR was a mistake for him. He should have taken the immediate realignment, assuming that he has a convenient card to do it. The next thing that I'm going to do is space tear down this wall. And then try to hop over him. Okay, the Reformer is a great card right now. Really good card, actually. Assuming that he doesn't overprotect Italy. Oh, I have to play it by the end of this turn, though, don't I? 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's kind of too bad. I think that's a safe play for him right now, if I'm not mistaken. So he's overprotecting some of that stuff. That makes perfect sense. We failed on the space race, but at least we got that out of our hand. He's probably going to follow suit now by spacing. He plays Summit for a coup. And he coups Nicaragua. It's not really a huge deal. I think in this case... Do I play the Reformer now to keep him busy? What are my options here? I think we will go ahead and probably coup back. There's not a lot more that I can really kind of make happen right now. On the other hand, I could take Botswana. I do need to make something happen here in some of the African regions. So let's just play that and see what happens. On the plus side, he's gotten 3 voices against me. I'm pretty sure he can't pull out another one. So that's kind of nice. I should probably play the Reformer hopefully on my AR-7 here, if he doesn't have something really strong that he can kind of pull out. But we'll have to see how that goes. Okay, we get Marine Barracks bombing. That's a really good one. That's just going to be a maintenance turn for him, I guess, since we go straight back into Iran. On the plus side, I get Lebanon for whatever that's worth, which is basically nothing right now. So he's down to kind of like the dregs of his turn. That's fine. And we're going to go ahead and trigger Colonial Rearguards. Give him an opportunity to play that. So I have about 9 minutes for my final turn. That's probably about right. So let's see what we can make happen. South America is going to be challenging. Central America is really my only kind of vanguard right now. So we're going to just take a whole bunch of this stuff. Okay. Africa, I do have a shot to be able to deny him country count, and that's probably going to be my strongest move that I can pull out. The good news is a lot of the DEFCON suicide cards are gone for me at this point. He goes for a coup, probably in Africa. Sudan would make sense. He goes for Zimbabwe. That's probably pretty good too. Gives him that domination back. Chile's looking pretty good, so here we're going to play the Reformer and hope that he doesn't have too much to really respond to all this with. And we'll have to see what happens. So, that was pretty nice. Hopefully he definitely can't repair all of it, which is pretty great. So there is a possibility of me being able to finally grab a third European battleground here in turn 10 if I draw the right cards, and we're going to have to see what happens. So the biggest concern right now is Africa. Europe, assuming he gets it back, puts it at 5. I'm at 9 from Central, so that's kind of a wash. He uses the China card, which is great. That means he won't have it for his last turn. It also finally raises the possibility of maybe being able to take some of this stuff back over in Asia. So let's see what happens. This is the big one. Alright, I got War Games. I got East European Unrest, which I can't use. No scoring cards that I see. He might have gotten Defectors. Socialist Governments is really good here. And I think it has to be my headline. It is possible that he has Defectors, which is kind of too bad, but we're just going to have to go with what we got, I think. If Socialist Governments is going to make a difference, it needs to be right now. So, the only alternative is if he plays Margaret Thatcher, which would actually be hilarious, I'm not going to lie, if he were to do that. But I think we gotta give it a shot. And if he got Defectors, if he got Thatcher, you know, nothing happens though here, which kind of sucks. But it's also the only opportunity that I'm going to have to be able to take Italy. So, let's see what happens. Defectors make sense, Thatcher makes sense, and we'll go from there. He plays Special Relationship. That's definitely a really good one. That's pretty funny, actually. But he may not have fully thought this through. Perfect. Yeah, that was probably a bit of a misplay from him. We're going to go ahead and take Italy. Finally. And I don't think I can do anything to drop DEFCON here, unfortunately. I can't make it happen at the same time. So let's just take a bunch of stuff in Africa as well to start making some stuff here more challenging for him. Okay, that makes sense to me. Alright, we got Europe tied up, which is great. He gets the coup, which kind of sucks, but, you know, it is what it is. I got 2 wars, so if we get a little bit lucky on one of them, that could swing things a little bit. I've got a 1/3 chance of taking Iran, and I need to decide what my best opportunity is here in Africa. So my best case scenario is that he redrew Europe's scoring. That would be really nice to see. The only thing I want to space is East European Unrest, so that's not really a huge deal. I've got the China card for my last action if I want to take it, or I could try to save War Games for that. So let's give it a shot and see what happens. Aldrich James I should play immediately to take away his best card, and maybe force him into playing some stuff that he doesn't want to. Yeah, Special Relationship was cute, but I think that was a mistake. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a mistake. Let's see what he coups. Mexico, he got really good result on that, which kind of sucks. Central America was going to be one of my only kind of really strong remaining locations, but that's fine. Okay, what are my options for actually taking domination in Europe here? We're at 3-2, so technically one non-battleground actually takes it, which is great. I think we will go ahead and play Aldrich James here. It's always a good choice. Okay, he's got South America, he's got Europe. Glasnost, I think, is unplayable for him right now, since I can immediately... yeah, that's definitely not really a good choice for him. John Paul II is nice. North Sea Oil. Yeah, I definitely want to make him do all of that stuff. That's going to be really great, actually. So John Paul is really the only thing I need to watch out for. So I guess we toss North Sea Oil. Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, that's going to give me a lot of stuff. Okay. How do we win this? If he's smart, he scores Europe immediately. Otherwise, let's play Romanian abdication! Yeah, I mean, if I know Europe's going to score twice, I don't mind racing him on country count here. Yugoslav and Bulgaria I both get with 2 ops each. Romanian abdication gives me, well, Romania. Regenbaum's Libya is a totally safe event for me to play. Brush War I've got in my back pocket. Looking at his hand, this is definitely winnable. I was very lucky in drawing a very strong hand for my last turn, and he drew quite a weak hand, which was made worse by being able to open with socialist governments, as well as with Aldrich Ames being able to cut it. He did make one serious misplay, which was special relationship, I will say that. Yeah, that was just wrong. But yeah, it is still unfortunate for him. So 6.5 minutes here. He goes for influence with the Pope. That makes perfect sense. He is locking up some stuff in South America, which I definitely don't blame him. That gives him 5 points right now. How do I stop it? I stop it with a brush war on Brazil. And I got it, which is great. Perfect. South America is all tied up, and I can potentially even take domination by realigning him out of Venezuela here. We're going to go ahead and... Perfect. He touches South America, which is all according to plan, because it means that I can now take domination in Europe. Great. Okay, 6 points for me from Europe, unless he can tie this up. We're at 4-2 countries. He gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 easy ones. He spaces Glasnost, which he pretty much has to do. Perfect, he fails on it. I'll go ahead and follow suit with East European unrest. Not that it really matters. That actually, well, actually it means that I can hold on to the China card, which I don't necessarily hate. That was, no, that was a huge misplay, actually, because it was an empty turn. It didn't give me any points. Regenbaum's Libya isn't a problem. Yeah, that was incorrect. I shouldn't have done that. Iran-Contra scandal, he's going to tie up some stuff in Europe there. That's fine, I guess. The only advantage that I get from having spaced that is it means I can play War Games and the China card at the same time here, which I will probably go ahead and do to lock up some stuff in Europe. Perfect. I think, considering how bad this looked when we started this turn, yeah, there we go. I think we're basically done here. So I've got 5 minutes. What's his last action round? He had North Sea Oil and Iran-Contra. Oh, it's decolonization. Oh my god. Okay, well, if he has to sit on decol, what can I do to cause problems for him here? This one, this one. What's the country count? I actually have more battlegrounds. So 6, and if I can get him down to 5 countries, I get domination in Asia. So that's a lot, but it might be doable. Okay. Does that work? That puts us at 7-7. I think I don't... Oh, but Africa. Oh, but I get... this is at 6-5 right now. Yeah. One, two, three? I mean, I'm pretty sure I've won this regardless, but I think my best option here is one here as well, because decall lets me take that, and I think I can deny his country count here. I haven't done all the math, but I'm pretty sure that works. I do have 4 minutes to do the math, though. Okay. So if I take Laos, Cambodia, we're at 7 and 8. He plays decolonization here. So I lock up Africa. I get 1, 2 more countries for sure. That puts me at... in Africa, that puts me at 7 countries to his 6, so he needs to coup one of them. But it also lets me break 2 of his countries over here, and he can only do one thing with those, with decall. So if I play Somalia, Cameroon, Indonesia, and Philippines, he doesn't have a one-op. Oh, he can take Tunisia, though. So that would turn Tunisia 7 countries to 7, which would be fine. Yeah, he can't fix all of this. Perfect. Okay. I think this is doable with domination in Asia. Yeah, this last turn was a dumpster fire for him, unfortunately. So we get decall. I get to trigger it first. We get 1 into Somalia, 1 into Cameroon, 1 into Indonesia, 1 into Malaysia. Yep. And he can only fix 2 of those. GG. Brutal last turn. There we go. Wow, that was an interesting game. I did not think that was going to go so well at the start of it. All right.